Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County branch of the American Association of University Women, one of the civic partners for this show. Today my guest is Sarah Lister. Sarah is is at SUNY Potsdam, and she coordinates the campus food pantry. So we're going to be talking to her about that and some of the issues around things like that at the campus. Sarah, thank you for coming in, and thank you for coming back to North Country Matters. You were just with us a while ago for a show about newly elected people on local boards. So it's great to have you here, and we're going to be talking about one of the projects that you were involved with as part of your day job, which is with the Department of Public Health and Human Performance at SUNY Potsdam. So let's start off by talking a little bit about what that department does. What's your mission, and what are your responsibilities with the department?
Yeah, the Department of Public Health and Human Performance was until very recently known as the Department of Community Health. We changed our name to reflect our growing identity. So we incorporate both the community health major at SUNY Potsdam as well as the exercise science major, that human performance piece, the wilderness education and therapeutic recreation minors, and we also have a master's degree in community health. So public health, just as a general definition, is it promotes and protects the health of people where they live, where they work, and where they play, and the communities that they do those activities in. Public health it's really important to us to incorporate applied learning and to get the community involved, because our mission is really to instruct the public health professionals of the future, and many of them end up staying in the North Country and influencing public health in this area, which is great.
Well, and one of the things I think that's true about public health is that it's one of those underlying structures that we have that a lot of people take for granted. They're not really aware of it, they don't really pay attention to it, and yet when the public health structure fails, bad things happen. So it's really important to keep it as a holistic operation, which you obviously do in your department, but it's a critical piece of just quality of life.
It absolutely is, and like you said, it's not something you think about when it's going well, but you do definitely think about it when it's not.
That's right. So, and one of the things that your department does is you train professionals to work with the high needs population, and you're also acting as your department's community health internship coordinator.
Yes.
So you're actually putting students out in these various community type efforts, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm the internship coordinator. I teach a couple of classes to get students ready for their applied learning experiences. I support them as they're out on their internships. And I teach another class that is based on service learning and gets students into the community. So yes, we do address high needs populations for sure. We want to make sure that our public health professionals of the future are ready to deal with anyone who comes their way, and that I think the populations are changing. One emphasis of the department has become health disparities and looking at the gaps in public health services and healthcare based on characteristics of communities.
Right, and we know that even though we have a great healthcare system available to us here in the North Country, there's also an expense component to that, unfortunately, and so there's parts of our population that can't access it as well or as often as they need to.
Absolutely. And as the internship coordinator, I'm in a really awesome position to learn about those gaps and then to be able to address them as well as I can by sending interns or making connections with students and those community partners that are trying to address those gaps.
So part of your work, though, obviously in the coordination of the campus food pantry, the high needs populations aren't just out in the community. There's some high need populations right on your campus, aren't there?
There definitely are. In the past decade or so, the food pantry started about 10 years ago. In the past decade or so, the needs of the students have definitely been evolving, partially just based on the needs of people in the United States in general, but also the population of young people that are coming to SUNY Potsdam and are choosing our school. That is changing as well. We are seeing higher needs. We're seeing students with higher needs. We're seeing students with greater challenges in terms of accessing healthcare, mental health care, just the things that they need to survive, food, housing. there's recently been an initiative on campus called the Student Care Advisory Committee, which is aiming to address those student needs through dispelling through sending information into the faculty. A lot of faculty have been reporting that more and more in recent years, students are coming to them with academic concerns, but also with livelihood concerns like I don't have a place to live, or I don't have any food for dinner tonight, or I didn't do well on that test because I didn't eat any breakfast. And faculty are struggling. They might be experts in their field, but they're struggling to figure out how to address those student needs. So the Student Care Advisory Group is an initiative of the provost, and Betty Bergeron is really putting a lot of energy behind making sure that faculty are aware of the services in the community, like the campus food pantry.
It's interesting because one of the things that I've been doing some reading about is how the student population has been changing.
Yeah.
There really isn't, traditionally, if you're old enough, you think of college students as 18 to 21, and a lot of the students that are coming to campus, campuses all over the country now, they may be older than that. They may have a child. They may be doing it part-time because they're working part-time. There really isn't a traditional college student feel to campuses anymore, is there? It's a very mixed group of people who are coming at a different point in their lives to get education.
Absolutely, and a lot of the assumptions that we make about college students just aren't true. The fact that they might have a family at home that's supporting them. The college student might in fact be sending money home to their family in a lot of cases, and we're definitely seeing the needs shift. Unfortunately, we hope that college can be a time where students are developing their sense of identity and are figuring out where they want to go with their career. Especially at a small school like SUNY Potsdam, where there's so much individual attention for the students. Unfortunately, a lot of students need to focus on survival.
Right, and that's something that, as we've seen in the last few years, as the economy went kind of tanked in 2008, and it's slowly coming back, although it's coming back very unevenly. There's lots of places like the North Country which have never been robust in economic terms. We go down really quickly, but we only come back very slowly. So you have students who are really struggling financially to even be in college, and although New York State has been working on what they call free tuition for SUNY and CUNY students, the tuition is actually a small part of the overall cost of going to college, and as you say, the housing and the food and all those other items, they can't be ignored. They don't go away. You have to eat every day, or at least you have to try to eat every day, and if you don't, there's academic consequences, just as your faculty has begun to discover. One of the things that Governor Cuomo did in his State of the State was he started his No Student Goes Hungry initiative, and that is so that SUNY and CUNY campuses will create on-campus food banks. I was surprised to learn that your food bank has been around for 10 years. That's a long time to be serving population, and until recently it's been a pretty well kept secret, it seems like, in terms of off-campus.
It has been. So 10 years ago, one of the department secretary at the time, Diane Billings, who is very bashful and wouldn't love that I was saying her name, but she deserves credit. She had a student worker in the summer who she realized in the summertime that the resources on campus for students are really diminished. There aren't as many dining hall options. It can be hard for students to find food, even if they have the money. Getting off campus if they don't have a car and getting to a grocery store, there are all these other barriers. So Diane realized that some of her employees that she was working with in the summertime didn't have access to food. So she started just in an informal way, just going out and buying food at the grocery store and stocking her office with food. As she did this, as more students found out that she was a resource, she realized that the need was greater than she would be able to support just out of her office, and one of the lounges for the community health department was donated as this space for the campus food pantry. So for years it's just been a couple of bookshelves full of canned goods and whatever people drop off. But since this initiative that Governor Cuomo, he brought attention to student hunger, since this has happened, and since in December I was made the coordinator for the campus food pantry, in a way that in the past it had been a very informal departmental initiative. You know, people would bring food when they could, but it didn't necessarily have a
structure.
captain. Yeah. And so since this new initiative, and since I've been trying to figure out ways to support the students in a little bit more of a formal way, we've definitely been able to increase the amount of food that we've been offering to students and do some more outreach to let them know that it exists. Because you're not alone in not knowing that it existed for the past 10 years. A lot of people on campus had no idea that it existed as well. It was
Which
really...
meant some of those were people who needed to know it and didn't know, right?
Exactly, exactly. And we've seen, you know, professors now coming out of the woodwork, and now that they're finding out about the food pantry, saying, geez, I've had students for years that have been telling me about their food insecurity, and I didn't know that this existed at all. At the time, unfortunately, there's probably not the capacity to support all those other students. Now that more people are finding out about it, I've been trying to keep the shelves more full, but it's a self-perpetuating cycle. The more students that find out about it, the faster that food goes off the shelves.
And the need is there.
And the need is definitely there, yeah.
Well, you know, we've talked before on this show with other folks about trying to address issues of hunger. The snack pack program here at Potsdam that works with students at the public school. It's several other of our school districts in St. Lawrence County also have very similar programs. Right here in the basement area of the public library, right next door is the neighborhood center, and they have food, but it's not always easy for students to understand what the capacity in the community is, so they're pretty much tied to what the campus could do. So talk to us a little bit, Sarah, about what the logistics of the SUNY Potsdam Pantry are, you know, located, hours of operation, who's using it, and what they can expect to find there.
Absolutely. Before I talk about the logistics, I want to add an important thing for me is helping students realize that they are a part of the community.
Right.
And so I've been working with the neighborhood center to put up some flyers around campus so that students realize that that's also an option for them, because they have the capacity to provide students with a level of consistent food that we just don't have. So that sense of identity is something that I'm really trying to work on with our students, that you know, while you are here, you are a part of Potsdam, and we embrace you.
And let me just say that when you talked earlier about being the student intern coordinator, that's an opportunity for students, whether or not they're in need, to pay back in the community and to really become invested in the community, because as a longtime resident, it's often felt like students come here, but they never feel like they're part of being here.
Right.
And that creates some tensions that don't necessarily have to be there if there was better communication in both directions.
Absolutely. I'm really proud of my students in one of my classes in particular this semester. I have a student who is volunteering with the snack pack program that you mentioned with Laurel Bro. And I've got another student who's been volunteering with me at the food pantry. So it's a great example of how, you know, students that are required in my class to do service learning can do that on campus or off campus. They also are required to participate in some community events, and I really hope that helps break down that downtown divide that we see so often in college towns. But the logistics of the food pantry, like you asked about, the way that it works is that students in many food pantries, people are required to show ID or to show some form of to show need in some way. At the campus food pantry, it's very informal. It's hardly ever staffed or manned. It's just a classroom with a desk, some chairs, and a bunch of bookshelves full of food. Students are in there all the time just working on homework, and other students will pass through and just grab some food and head on their way.
So it's pretty much on the honor system. You take what you need, and that's that.
It's 100% on the honor system. One of the reasons for that is because we understand that while some students have financial need that they can prove, others don't. Others might have, you know, money from their family might have money. They might not be able to show a tax return that shows their need, but there's need there. Or, you know, students at SUNY Potsdam, we've been seeing really high rates of mental health hospitalizations, and as we know, mental health needs can impact other parts of your life, and if we can make it as easy as possible for students to access food, then at least we can cut down one source of stress for them.
Yeah, and you know, that whole mental health thing, I had a conversation last week with Steve Todd, who's with the Jeff Lewis BOCES, and he talks about the mental health needs that his BOCES the services that they're able to offer to students in their district, and it's very hard there's very limited mental health services available in the North Country. It's very hard to get to them. So they've broken down the transportation barrier by being able to do that in-house. And certainly when you get to the college population, so many of them are from out of the area. They don't know what the resources are, and they have no way to access them. So
Absolutely.
that, and the fallout from those kinds of issues doesn't just touch one part of your life, it touches all the parts of your life, and you have a lot of barriers to overcome as you're trying to get the help you need. So the fact that you're there takes one little piece of that burden off those students.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get donations in a couple of different ways. We have been so fortunate to work with Pacey's, the Potsdam Dining Services organization. They've been so helpful to us. They at the end of last semester, for the and years previous, students that knew about the food pantry would have extra meals on their card or have extra flex cash on their card, and swipe their card and pick up some cereal or pick up some stable goods and bring them over to the food pantry to drop them off. Pacey's has allowed us to formalize that process, and so students now can swipe their cards. They don't have to leave with anything in their hands, but that money will go into an account that Pacey's will designate for the food pantry, and then they'll bring us food throughout the semester whenever our stocks are getting low. And they can bring us, soup, cereal, whatever it is that they see that we are low in. So Pacey's has been really helpful. And it's nice because, on the campus it helps balance things out. There are some students who have extra, and there's some students that don't have enough, so they're helping bridge that gap.
And they're also learning a lot about the social side of problems that these are the same problems that are being mirrored in the larger society, and so the help, being able to help, is part of good training for going out into life, isn't it?
That's what it's all about. Yeah. Being
really
on a
is.
college campus, we're right there. We're hoping that we're training them with the skills that they need to go out into the world and
the sensitivity.
Exactly.
To be aware that not everyone has the same set of resources, and so that's good. Now, so you have mechanisms within the campus, like through the Pacey's donation program, and then you also get donations. People bring you donations both from within the campus community, and you can take them from without as well. So talk a little bit about how someone would go about doing that.
Yeah, so there are a couple different ways to donate to us. Donating food is always fantastic. Food or toiletries. When I've had toothpaste or toothbrushes in that food pantry, they don't last a day. Students take those. Menstrual hygiene products as well go really quickly. So bringing in goods themselves, that's really helpful, and we've had people drop things off. If someone, I want people to know that if someone does bring a donation, like a large donation of food or toiletries or what have you, and they have a receipt, they can get a tax deductible. They since we are a part of the Campus Foundation, which is a nonprofit, they can get a receipt so that they can deduct that on their taxes. We also receive gifts of cash, and same thing, that's a tax deductible donation that can be made through the Campus Foundation.
I actually have the website for that, and I'll put that in the show notes so that people will be able to know where that is. You need also to tell them where do they drop their donations off? Yeah, that's kind of important.
Yeah, that's important. So the food pantry is located and done on SUNY Potsdam campus in the building Dunn in 100D. So they can drop off donations directly to the food pantry. We're open every Monday through Friday from 8 to 4, but we're often open later than that as well.
And Dunn is kind of open, it's sort of in the middle of the campus, isn't it?
It makes up a part of the quad.
Right.
Yep.
So it's not on it's on the middle edge, it's sort of on the middle edge as opposed to the outer edges.
Yes,
so,
it is.
If that makes sense
It's on
geographically.
Barrington.
Yeah,
it's on
exactly.
Barrington Drive. So if people drive up to Barrington, they'll see Dunn on their left if they're coming from Pierpont. So I'm in Dunn 100. They can also come and talk to me directly there, just down the hall from the food pantry. So the food pantry itself is Dunn 100D, and people can drop donations directly out in the food pantry if it's open. And if it happens to be locked at the time, there's a table outside the food pantry where they can leave donations as well. So
you're beginning to formalize the process of both getting food in and making it available on the campus. Where do you see this going down the road in terms of how are you going to continue to meet the growing needs, and as more people find out about it, then that's going to be a good avenue for them to take care of perhaps a temporary situation, maybe a little bit longer term situation. I'm sure the later you get in the semester, the more people are in need.
Absolutely. So the later we get in the semester, during breaks, when, like I said earlier, some of those campus food sources close down, there's definitely a growing need. So we plan to address the changing needs in a couple of ways. First off, the more people that find out about the food pantry, the more people are using it, but also the more people have been donating it to the food pantry. So recently we've received some really generous donations, including some faculty and staff members who have done an automatic payroll deduction so that every time they get a paycheck, some money goes into our account with the Campus Foundation, which is really helpful because that allows me, when I see, wow, there's an emergency need in the food pantry where our stocks are low, I can go to the store and fill up our shelves, which is great. Our goal, our dream for the food pantry is to move into Merritt Hall. You might have seen that the Child Care Center, which has been in Merritt, which is also a part of that quad, is moving across the street into a new facility soon. And the Department of Public Health and Human Performance, we really want that space because we're one of the fastest growing departments on campus, and our space is quite limited and done. In addition, that Merritt space has a kitchen, has a pool. These are things that our department, especially with our exercise science component, we could really use. A big part of our curriculum in the community health degree is nutrition, and so having access to a kitchen would be really helpful. In addition, having access to a kitchen with a food pantry, we could do cooking classes with students, we could do community meals, all sorts of doors would open up for us. We've also been working with an alumni group recently, Prometheus, which was a service organization on campus for many years. And I've been working with the Health Initiative to acquire some funds for some things that we could really use, a refrigerator and things like that. We have a small mini fridge, and Pacey's donated a merchandise freezer, but we just don't have enough space for that many things. And with that small space, I can fill up the shelves and then they'll be empty in 2 days. I really need more space to work with. So if we are able to move into Merritt, we're hoping that we have a larger space. We're hoping that we can take advantage of some of the generosity that Prometheus and other groups would like to show us by buying us equipment that we need. Right now, they can buy us equipment, but I don't have anywhere to put it.
Right, and so that's a problem in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
you can't be as effective and as efficient as you want to be without the space and the equipment.
Precisely, and I would be able to buy more things in bulk. I'd be able to access better deals and get more. Address more of our students' needs if I had more space to do it. So hopefully we'll move into Merritt and we will have access to all the space we could ever dream of.
Well, one of the things that a lot of groups who start out in a volunteer basis as you are is they actually get involved with they get involved more formally with some of like the neighborhood center does,
with
the food bank of Central New York, which covers a big chunk of New York State, including all up here in northern New York. The snack pack program is now affiliated with them. So is that a possibility down the road? Can you see the need being such that you would ever affiliate in that particular way with the food bank?
Right, the need is there. I'm not sure if we as a department are discussing whether it would be a good idea for us to affiliate or not. There would definitely be benefits. We'd be able to access more food at a lower rate,
Lower cost, right.
Yeah, at a lower cost. The food bank definitely has access to some great deals. However, it does come at a cost to us as well. I really like that we don't have to collect any information from students, and when you become a member of the food bank, there is an obligation to collect some information.
And that might become a barrier.
That might become a barrier for students accessing food. That certainly could become just enough of a barrier that a student, one of the big things that we face is just shame. Students feel ashamed that they need to access that.
And it isn't just students. We see that up and down the spectrum.
Absolutely.
There are seniors who are eligible for a lot of these services who won't ask for them because they don't want people to know that they're in difficulties. There's families all over the place that the help is there, the opportunities to get help are there, and people just can't bring themselves to do that. So certainly students don't have the market cornered on that at all.
No, they don't.
And the thing you need to understand is that, particularly when you're in an education setting, whether it's a grade school or a college, if you don't have the right nutrition, you're not going to be as good a student as you need to be to get out. And you've invested a lot of time, you've invested a lot of money, and to fail because of hunger when it can be met is just not right.
It's
not,
really not.
It's not the way the world's supposed to work.
No, and that, being one thing that I've been asked recently is, do you imagine in the future that the Department of Public Health and Human Performance will continue to be a parent organization over the food pantry? And I do think so, and that's because I think that our department like you mentioned before, we train our students to deal with everyone, especially a high needs population. And so if students are working together and are able to both access these things, these resources, as they learn about the importance of access to resources, I think that it really creates a great like multi-sided platform for them. So I think that when I see students in our hallway, yes, there are some students who are reluctant or who don't feel good about accessing the food from the food pantry. But more often than not, I see students doing their homework in the food pantry, eating a couple snacks from the food pantry, and it could be anybody. It's not necessarily our students who are the most food insecure or have the least financial resources. Like I said earlier, food insecurity doesn't just mean that you don't have the money for food. It also means that you don't necessarily have transportation, or that you're
cooking facilities, or whatever.
Or hey, it's finals week and I just don't have the time to go to the grocery store. So I think that the fact that we're a part of that department really reduces that stigma that a lot of people feel.
Right, because you can be there for another reason.
You can.
And no one knows what that reason is about why you're there. Just this morning on the news, I read that Governor Cuomo is going to put in place a mechanism for SUNY and CUNY students to get college credit for volunteering to help to rebuild Puerto Rico after last year's hurricanes. And so this to me is a great example of how you reward people for giving back, whether it's maybe somebody who is a recipient of food from the food pantry this year, next year is maybe going to be a donator or a volunteer with the food pantry. So people learn that you can give and receive at the different times in your life based on your circumstances, and it's a way to pay forward, not pay back, but pay forward. I needed help, and now I'm able to give help.
Absolutely, and that's something that makes me really glad when I see the students realizing that. And I've had a student tell me, in fact, that there have been times in his college career that he's donated food to the food pantry, and now he's in a different situation financially, and he's using the food pantry as a resource. And the fact that he's seen it from both sides, I think, fits in really well with our educational mission in our department, as well as our mission as a college, that we want to support our students in whatever way we can to achieve their goals.
And one of the things that we know about public health and people's just health in general is that in the United States, food is relatively cheap, but medical care is very expensive. In Europe, food is expensive, but medical care is cheap, and they need less of it. So when we do a better job of educating people about nutrition and about these kinds of things, we're actually going to reduce their healthcare needs down the road. So these are great lessons to be learned early in life rather than at the other end of the spectrum when it's a little bit too late to mitigate some of the problems that perhaps poor nutrition has created in your life. Yeah,
prevention is definitely one of the tenets of public health, for sure, and that's something we talk a lot about in our classrooms, and I'm glad that the students are able to see that in practice as soon as they leave their classrooms as well.
And I love the fact that you have students who are volunteering for some of the community programs that are addressing some of these needs outside of the college environment, because that's going to make them better stewards of their own time and energy. And it's that giving back to the community that you're in, even if you're only in it temporarily.
Absolutely, yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are; you can still be you can still have a positive impact.
Well, and what I love is when I see this happens to me as the internship coordinator pretty frequently. I have students who anticipate that they'll do their internship elsewhere. And then I have an event every semester where I bring community partners in to do speed dating interviews, we call them. So really quick little interviews with a bunch of community partners. And I tell students, if you don't plan on staying here, it's still a good interview practice. Every time, students who plan on doing their internship elsewhere will meet an agency, change their mind about leaving, and want to stay in this area. And every time that happens, I see a couple job offers, and we get new public health professionals who planned on leaving the area, who fall in love with the North Country during their term of their internship. And that makes me really happy because I think that we're bringing really incredible young people to the area.
We are, and that's been one of the problems in the North Country for generations, is that our young people have left because they didn't feel like opportunity was here. And so the fact that we can replace that with some folks with maybe a different perspective and some new energy is very important to our overall health as a community.
Right.
So I think that's great. So any final words that you have about either the program or the food pantry that you'd like to leave with people, Sarah?
One thing I'd like to leave with people about the program is, not a lot of people think about, being a public health professional when they grow up. But I want people to start thinking about public health more. Like you said in the beginning of this discussion, it's something that we don't think about until something's going wrong. But once you start to realize what public health, the impact it has on our lives, it's everywhere. And so I hope people will take some time to think about that and spread the word. And if you know someone who's trying to figure out what they want to do with their life, mention public health as a career path, because it is a growing field. Our graduates have really high placement rates in jobs in the area. We have a master's program that has 100% job placement to this point.
Hey, that is nothing to be sneezed at.
Absolutely not. And so I don't think a lot of people don't know what public health is, but I think once people are introduced to the world of public health, it's really hard to ignore it. And it's something that definitely I, in my career, have just fallen, I've developed this really intense passion for, because I was not involved in this career path originally, but when I began to see the world of public health, it's so important. It's critical to our lives. So
It is. I actually have a niece who graduated with an undergraduate degree. She now has her master's in public health and is going for her PhD. And she speaks so eloquently about so many facets of public health and the impact it has on the communities, where people are living. And it's everything from the what you eat to the housing that you live in, and the impact that medical care has on that, and up and down the spectrum. There are so many ramifications that it's a fascinating field. You're right.
it is. Well, and about the food pantry, just some closing thoughts. Our food pantry is really important to the folks on campus, but there's food insecurity in the North Country in general. So any way that people want to help, whatever food pantry impacts their community, we would be grateful for that. If that's the campus community that you want to help out, then we are happy to receive donations of food or of cash, and I'm grateful that you're going to put that link up there so that people know how to donate money to us. But any way that people address food insecurity in the North Country is good in our books. So if that's donating to the neighborhood center or to the snack pack programs,
or whatever is in your community, do it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you coming in today. These conversations have been a production of North Country Matters, which is filmed here in the Fred W. Cleveland Computer Center of the Potsdam Public Library. These shows are a civic collaboration between the American Association of University Women of St. Lawrence County, the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County, and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country Matters.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.